there are 3 Aegises. There can be 3 Ouroboros at a time because there's 6 party members. 6 divided by 2 is 3. We've seen in the cutscenes in the trailers that maybe not in gameplay wise, but in the story of the game, the party can form 3 Ouroboros at a time. So 3 Aegises, 3 Ouroboros. And I think we are also going to have 3 nations. Hi everybody, this is going to be my last video I post before I get my hands on Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And I wanted this one to be a culmination of a lot of the topics we've been talking about. And so, again, if you're new, this video is spoiler free because I haven't even played Xenoblade yet. I will say this, I unfortunately saw a little bit of a spoiler. It was kind of a big spoiler, but it wasn't. Anyway, I'm not even going to talk about it, but I saw a spoiler. So if you're trying to stay spoiler free, you really got to start getting off the internet. Especially because I know people are mentioning something about the final boss leaking, which I haven't seen, thank God. But regardless, I want to talk about the power of 3, because there's a lot of 3s when you start breaking down the world. So obviously the 3 Aegises based off of the last video, there would be 3 after Malos dying, if I remember Mithra separating. That would leave 3 Aegises to be the control of the world, to be the power in the world in place of the architect, or Zanza, or Klaus, whichever one you want to call it. And then you would have the 3 Ouroboros that conformed in a party at a time. But then something I wanted to mention is the possibility of having 3 nations. We have Kieves or Kevis versus Agnes. Someone correct me in the comments saying, "Oh, I don't mean to bother you. It's not Kieves, it's Kevs and Agnes." It's my fault. But so you got Kevis and you got Agnes. But in the first trailer, I believe Van Damme mentions Sword Mark, the land pierced by a great sword, which we know is the Mechanic sword. And so, I think it's interesting to note that this could be the land where Van Damme hails from, and Van Damme seems to be the character living outside the boundaries of the 2 nations, because he meets the party and we don't see him. We know that he doesn't have any allegiance to any side right now, so he could be living in that in between. He could be that the person that decides to reject, and there could be a nation of people who reject that, and that will be the 3rd nation. Alternatively, the 3rd nation could also serve to be the higher power of people who are managing this whole sort of war, facilitating it for their own flame clogs. But regardless, I think we're going to see a 3rd nation, and the 3rd nation is going to be the nation that is either oblivious to the war, above the war, or continues to fuel the war because it benefits them. So they either are separated from the war, or they benefit from the war, or both. Maybe it's a divided nation. Maybe a divided nation caused these 2 nations to go to war. But regardless, I think that there's going to be a lot of 3s. Even though we got 1 and 2, you would think there'd be a lot of here and there. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff in the middle, which in the middle would be 3. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3. So pay attention to how many sets of 3 you'll see in the game. Pay attention to that. But not only that, I guess I'm going to use this video to talk about, I guess, everything. So we know that this game is going to be massive. I talked about that. And then I also talked about how I think Melia now is becoming the Telethia, right? The mindset of the Telethia, meaning that she's being controlled, which would play into the 3rd nation, because the 3rd nation would be the one. It could be whoever the higher power is controlling and perpetuating this war. We know that in Xenoblade Chronicles, in any Xenoblade game, anytime you think there may be only a certain amount of people, there's always people living above it. So you see all the great titans, but then you got the Praetorium, which is living literally outside of that, right? So you have the Praetorium there, and then after the Praetorium in Xenoblade 1 and 2, Xenoblade 1, you think it's just, it's literally just just the Homs versus the Mackinac. It's not. It's not. You got the Hyantia, and then you got other people. It's never as simple as just 1 versus 2. No Xenoblade game is as simple as 1 and 2. Like 1 and 2 is in like 2 points, being like one guy versus another guy, and that's it. It's always more complex than that. And so I definitely recommend keep your eyes open going into this game, because there's going to be a lot, and I recommend doing side quests because I think that's where some extra lore is going to be hidden. Extra lore is always hidden in the side quests, but that's an important note as well. And then something else I wanted to discuss is music. I think there's going to be a lot of music motifs. I'd recommend, if you want to listen to both soundtracks, that's fine, but I think listen to the main themes of Xenoblade 1 and 2, both the title themes, and see if you can hear those motifs that way. Going over some of my other theories, there's clearly people that are going to live outside of this 10-year boundary that's being established. So it's being established to us that people only have lives of 10 years called terms. I feel like there's definitely going to be people that live outside of that barrier, because there would just have to be, because it's never that simple. In Xenoblade games, if you ever think it's that simple, it definitely is not. And so there's people that live outside of that, so it's going to be interesting to see how people live outside those 10-year terms beyond the queens, because obviously the queens live outside those 10-year terms. It will be interesting to see how other people who live outside of those 10-year terms look on those who live only 10 years. Do they look down on them as like, oh, they're just soldiers? They're not important. They just serve their 10 years and that's it, you know? And then I really think we're going to see a whole bunch of Xenoblade 1 and 2 references. I know that there's going to be references that for us fans we will get, but people who didn't play 1 and 2 wouldn't get it. But I think the story's still going to pretty much be pretty unique. I think anyone who played 1 and 2 is going to get the most out of it. But I know that they're trying to say that this is a game you can play without playing the other two, which Xenoblade does a good job of doing that. However, it definitely ties back in and gives to those who have played other games. Like when you play Definitive Edition, if you play 2, you see Alvis's necklace is a core crystal. That's an Aegis core crystal. It's a different color and it's on his chest. You could tell that means he's the 3rd Aegis. And then in Xenoblade 2, if you played Xenoblade 1, you see at the moment where Klaus is about to die, you see that you hear Shulk's word when he's fighting Zanza. So there's a whole lot of connection. I mean, we know this world is going to be directly connected, but I know that the story is going to be unique, but I still think there's going to be a lot of story, particularly that we're going to pick up on as fans of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2. Or just long-time Xenoblade fans, to be honest. And so, one quick thing, my order I'm going to have to buy another physical copy tomorrow of Xenoblade 3, because my collector's edition, the physical copy, just shipped today. Not the collector's edition itself, but just the physical game. But I'm so hyped for Xenoblade 2. Next time y'all see an upload from me, we're going to be covering... I'm hyped for Xenoblade 3. Next time you see a video from me, it's going to be about Xenoblade 3. And so I love y'all. Make sure y'all subscribe.